Today I've decided to give in to my current compulsion and revisit First Encounter Assault Recon, better known as Fear. Developed by Monolith Productions and published by Vivendi Universal through Sierra Entertainment in 2005. This Windows PC version may have released over a dozen years ago, but back then it was setting the computer gaming world on fire. Look at these quotes. The hype was real when this launched in 2005. I remember being floored by the E3 demos, with it appearing to be a mix of the John Woo-inspired bullet time spectacle seen in games like Max Payne, mixed with the gory atmospheric spookiness of Doom 3. That sounded good to me as is, plus I was enjoying the mid-2000s trend of stringy-haired ghost girls in horror movies, so Fear seemed like a fitting mix of my preferred pop culture trends. Inside the box, you got the game itself on a quintet of CD-ROM discs and sleeves, as well as a 33-page instruction booklet diving into gameplay basics, along with a description of items and weaponry without spoiling every detail. Additionally, there was a Director's Edition release, which included a DVD-ROM version of the game that also packed a documentary video, interviews and roundtable discussions, and a spoof by Rooster Teeth titled Panics. Furthermore, it came with this sweet comic book by Dark Horse Comics, acting as a brief narrative prequel. And in later years, Fear came to Xbox 360 and PS3 as well, but from here on out we'll be sticking with the PC original. After some company logo animations that have become oddly nostalgic, you're greeted by the main menu, with its eerie ambience and video clips showing the upcoming chaos. Before that, though, it's best practice to hop into the graphics options and see what's up, because in 2005 this was a PC benchmarking staple. Fear makes use of what was then the latest Lithtech game engine, known as the Jupiter Extended Engine. Its combination of DirectX 9 rendering, Shader Model 2 support, Havok game dynamics, particle physics, and a slew of other tech meant Fear looked cutting edge on a capable PC. And getting decent numbers at the end of the built-in benchmark was a point of pride indeed. Once you're finished ogling numbers, the single-player mode awaits. FEAR then plays an MOVIE, beginning with teeny-tiny text describing how the US Army formed the Fear Team to respond to paranormal threats to national security, but personally I feel it was to have another clever acronym under their belt. After this, you get a pretty excellent intro cinematic showing the possession of one Paxton Fettel and how, with the help of a creepy ghost girl in a red dress, he's escaped from his cell and taking control of a battalion of cloned soldiers using mind control. 'Cause video games. To top it off, the man has some particular culinary preferences. Oh yeah, Fear can get a bit graphic, so you've been warned and stuff. Anyway, since there's a telepathic cannibal weirdo on the loose, the First Encounter Assault Recon team is brought in to clean up. You take control of the voiceless protagonist known simply as Point Man, the new guy on the team that was hired 1 week prior for his exceptional reflexes.
You've seen his training results. His reflexes are totally off the charts. I think he can handle himself.
Maybe they should have done more research though, since you immediately black out and start having visions.
What's the first thing you remember?
Where are you taking him?
You will be a god among men.
Wake up, Mr. Freeman.
Oh well, I'm sure everything is fine. Once you arrive on scene and step out of the car, you're provided a peaceful little tutorial level that guides you by the hand, calmly showing you how to break pieces of wood and work with a fellow soldier until, oh no, Mr. Point Man, I don't feel so good. Before long, though, you stop tripping balls and eventually run across some of Fettel's recent Happy Meal leftovers. Then it's this radical helicopter arrival scene where you drop into the level with your disposable military buddies. Man, these guys are great. I'm sure we'll be friends forever. Nope. Well, pack it up, boys. Tutorial's over. And so is the rest of your squad, for that matter, thanks to the psionic abilities of a creepy girl named Alma. From this point onward, your visions continue with increasingly disturbing visuals flashing before your eyes as you walk through each level. Finally, though, you've been through enough and are ready to shoot some mind-controlled soldiers in the face. Cue the bullet time montage. Dude, yes, as effective and unsettling as the horror elements can be, it's the feel of the combat that really made Fear stand out from the rest. And the first key component of this is the slow motion mechanic, explained in-universe as Point Man having exceptionally high reflexes. It's also a legit lifesaver in most situations, with plenty of encounters and enemy types that will handily overwhelm you with both attack speed and sheer volume of ammunition. Bullet time, or reflex time, or whatever you want to call it, is as much about difficulty balancing as it is an easy sales gimmick for the marketing team to get off on. Everybody wins. Then there's the arsenal at your disposal, which kicks off with a very hard-boiled akimbo pistol option, followed by the requisite submachine gun, an incredibly satisfying pump-action shotgun, assault rifles in both fully automatic and burst-firing configurations, a rocket launcher that lobs multiple missiles with every press of the trigger, and several types of grenades and explosives for fragging the crap out of everything. Each of these are mighty pleasing to use, especially that shotgun with its ability to reduce clones to a fine red mist. But for the most part, it's a loadout pretty typical for a Special Forces-focused FPS game in the mid-2000s. It's the remaining weapons where Fear really cements itself into memory, starting with the legendary HV Penetrator. This is one of my favorite game weapons ever. It's a military-grade nail gun essentially, firing chunky metallic cylinders at stupidly high speeds. And this results in some gleeful piercing action, allowing you to staple dudes to the wall for an extra dosage of overkill. After this, you have the Type 7 particle weapon, one of Fear's more absurd options that is immediately deadly to darn near everyone. A single shot typically evaporates armor and flesh alike, instantly reducing weaker enemies to blood and bone. One of the more tense levels in the game features a whole section where most guys are equipped with a particle gun themselves, making for quite an anxiety-ridden firefight when everyone can deal so much damage to everyone else. And finally, there's the MP50 repeating cannon, an absurd 20mm semi-automatic weapon that shoots exploding ammo from a substantial 50-round magazine. It's a late-game item, so you don't get to do a ton with it, but I'm glad it exists nonetheless. However, all these wouldn't be nearly as fun if the baddies themselves weren't enjoyable to dispatch, and thankfully, they're outfitted with what I recall as the most advanced artificial intelligence of its day. It's still impressive, man. The way these guys move, communicate, flank, regroup, defend, and generally outmaneuver you throughout the campaign is fantastic. After all this time, I'm still surprised at what each squad is capable of doing during any given battle, with them shouting tactics and expletives in equal measure. Every single encounter ends up being a unique event with any number of variables determining whether they go high, go low, flank from behind, throw down cover, blast through barriers, flush you out with explosives, and generally incite unpredictable mayhem that still manages to feel like an intelligent, trained group of soldiers. So whenever you do manage to get the drop on them and hear something like this, then you know you've done something right. Partially to thank for these moments are the thoughtfully built levels and carefully displayed lighting, with no shortage of opportunities to remain stealthy and track down enemies using only shadows on a wall and positional audio cues. It's no Splinter Cell or Metal Gear, but it gets the job done. And the levels themselves are just complicated enough without being overwhelming, consisting of interconnected rooms and pathways, with an occasional valve puzzle or bit of machinery to manipulate in order to progress to the next section. So you get ample opportunity to approach groups of enemies in interesting ways, and there are plenty of rooms off the beaten path hiding ammo, medkits, armor, and upgrades for your health and reflexes. It all leads to an experience that lends itself to a surprising amount of quiet moments. It's you, a flashlight, and dark winding hallways for the most part. You don't even have to go in guns blazing all the time, as you have a variety of unarmed combat options. The amazing Point Man is apparently adept at martial arts too, serving up bicycle kicks, sliding takedowns, rapid punches, pistol whips, and sweeping kick attacks. Melee often ends up getting you killed if you're not careful, so I don't always recommend it, but it's a neat option and further adds to the full body presence going on. Yeah, Fear was one of the first FPS games I experienced with such a believable feeling of existing as a physical thing in a virtual world. Not only can you look down and see your feet and legs and stuff, but when you're knocked down, you actually see your character push himself up off the ground. That blew my mind a little back then. And every time you pass by a light source, you can see your own shadows in real time, reminding you that you're basically as vulnerable as everyone else. And man, do you feel vulnerable, especially during sections where control is taken away from you in order to provide some haunted house scares. Beyond the aforementioned Nick Cage faces flashing on screen, you're constantly running into spots where the lights start flickering. Apparitions appear for just long enough to make you wonder if you actually saw them, and controls are either slowed down or taken away from you entirely, so various disturbing things can happen. Things that are probably not real, but you can still die so it gets under your skin. And then there are ladders, which, I think the opportunity to make players pee themselves is half the reason they were designed this way. To climb a ladder, you press a key to be locked onto the ladder, resulting in limited movements and camera angles. Now, while this means the classic FPS problem of accidentally falling off a ladder is solved, it also means that sometimes, hi there! So yeah, Fear contains its share of jump scares and scenes of supernatural carnage, but a hefty amount of the horror stems from the constant threat of the unknown and unseen. You aren't sure what exactly Alma and Fettel are capable of, and the visions you experience grow increasingly disturbing and physically threatening. The whole campaign really does hold up in my opinion, with a thoroughly enjoyable romp through dimly lit warehouses, industrial zones, office buildings, science facilities, and other various places that for whatever reason intrigue me. Especially things like construction areas and office cubicles. I don't know, they simply captivated me with their normalcy. Just cinder blocks, spackled walls, computer monitors, and drink cans all over the place. Most of this stuff can be destroyed in spectacular fashion as well, which makes the inevitable battle in each new room a joy in terms of visuals alone. It also goes with the tried and true method of first-person exploration-based narrative as popularized by games like System Shock and Half-Life. Audio logs in the form of answering machine messages reveal tidbits of character backstory, and Alienware-branded laptops perform a similar task, having intelligent operatives sift through data and explain how things got so messed up. All you really need to know is it's a story of weird events happening to even weirder people, with government entities performing morally questionable experiments leading to unforeseen consequences. And yes, the protagonist has a key role in all of this because it's one of those chosen one stories where you're super awesome, but oh no, amnesia. Anyway, I won't spoil the story for those of you that haven't played it, though I will say it's a great time for the 7 to 10 hours it lasts, even if it ends on a rather high-stakes cliffhanger moment. I am not a fan of those, but it didn't detract from my overall satisfaction with the game up to that point. And besides, it wasn't long before we got Extraction Point in 2006, an expansion that picks up directly where the story left off. This was followed up with Fear Gold, packing both the Director's Edition of the base game and Extraction Point into one package. Even though it's developed by Timegate Studios and not the original dev team, it's still a solid expansion to the story, providing another 6 or 7 hours of gameplay and introducing several excellent new weapons, including the minigun, the Type 12 laser carbine rifle, and throwable turrets that activate unsensing motion. It also introduces some new features, like breakable crates full of valuable item drops, and the ability to smash through doors using melee, something I always wanted to do in the main game. And while I know some consider Extraction Point to be an even better campaign than the first, personally I rank it just below that. Having greater enemy variety gives it a leg up for sure, and at least it doesn't have that annoying Dennis Nedry character from the main story, but I don't know, there was something about the new environments and the quantity of scripted scary bits that didn't fully engage me like the base game did. Totally worth playing though, and I enjoyed the crap out of it back then, so I was quite excited to dive into Perseus Mandate a year later, again by Timegate Studios. And well, this is where it kinda lost me. As expected, you get some new weapons and enemies, and the combat's still a lot of fun, but you play a totally different character parallel to the main story, and you're accompanied by squad mates for a good portion of the experience. Combined with the larger and quite frankly uglier levels, and Perseus Mandate alters the feel of the game in ways that do not do it for me. Plus, how many mutes with superhuman reflexes does Fear have anyway? This is never really explained, and it all just struck me as a slapdash pack as a result. And I guess Monolith kind of agreed, seeing as neither of these expansions by Timegate are considered canon anymore, with Fear 2 being the only official follow-up to the original nowadays. Video game lore is weird. Besides, another big chunk of Fear has nothing to do with lore at all, and that is the multiplayer mode. This was released on its own for free under the title Fear Combat in 2006, and lasted a good 6 years before the master server was shut down in 2012. Thankfully, a group of fans put together fearcommunity.org, which continues to provide their own server access as of the making of this video. And for a game that features tons of slowed down gunplay, the multiplayer is anything but. Frantic barely begins to describe it. For the most part, it is a mad dash of nonsense, at least on the maps and modes that folks are still playing right now. Deathmatch, capture the flag, conquest, doesn't matter. The chaos is just non-stop, and if you're into that kind of thing, it's a blast. There is a fascinating slow-motion deathmatch mode too that treats it as a power-up, slowing down your opponents while your side temporarily gains the upper hand, but I didn't find anyone playing those maps at all, and I kinda don't blame them considering how chaotic the real-time modes are. And that's about it for First Encounter Assault Recon, one of my favorite shooters from the mid-2000s and one that I still entirely recommend revisiting. Whether it's the original game on CD-ROM, one of the console ports, a collection of the expansions like Fear Files, or Fear Platinum on services like GOG and Steam, it's all very much worth your time. And I'm happy to say it still works great for me on modern 64-bit operating systems, barring some issues with low frame rates, something that is easily fixed using fan-made patch files. So if you've never played it, or it's been a long time, now is as fine a moment as any to go all slow-mo with a high-velocity penetrator and avoid creepy children on top of ladders in Fear. If you liked what you saw here and you're into gaming retrospectives like this one, then might I recommend these. And I release new stuff every week here on LGR, so stick around or subscribe if that's your style. And as always, I thank you very much for watching.